The mission of Wilmington City Council is to provide visionary leadership in policy making on quality of life matters for Wilmingtonians. City Council develops well-researched legislation that will enable Wilmington's government to provide its residents, visitors, and businesses with the highest quality of public services in a fiscally responsible manner through cooperative decision-making, strong ethical leadership, open communication, and transparency with its elected public. City Council fulfills the critical responsibility of providing a check on the executive branch of city government, both through individual City Council committees and legislative measures to enhance transparency, accountability, and adherence to stated and collectively agreed upon goals for city operations. City Council also connects with constituents directly in forums like this, for example, to identify needs in the community and to have strategies to address those needs, both through legislation and through collaboration with the executive branch of city government, which is the mayor's office. As the legislative branch of city government, council is comprised of 13 elected officials who serve in a part-time capacity. They represent 8 districts across the city and are governed by city code and state charter. Their primary responsibilities are to enact laws, including their part of the process to approve the city's annual budget, which is going on right now, that process is. They draft resolutions, they provide checks and balances, and they provide constituent services for city residents. There are 2 words you're going to hear a lot tonight. The first is an ordinance. An ordinance is a formal act of council. Examples of ordinances include authorizing the Director of Public Works to enter into a contract for the construction of a project, approving on a union agreement, approving a conditional use application, or amending the codified ordinances of the city. The other word you'll hear a lot tonight is resolution. A resolution is a formal expression of city government. Of city council. Examples of those expressions include congratulating a local high school that's won a state championship, supporting or opposing a bill pending before the Delaware General Assembly, or approving the appointment of members of a board or a commission. And while county, state, and federal governments are our representatives for many issues facing Wilmingtonians, for example, education and transportation, the 107th session of Wilmington City Council is a committed cohort of colleagues who take very seriously the role they play in individually and collectively making Wilmington a wonderful place to live, work, and play through their legislative action. Our agenda this evening is really simple. I'm going to finish all this housekeeping stuff, and then I'm going to invite President Shabazz to the dais to talk about how the City Council strategic plan is directly tied to outcomes that you may or may not be aware are happening here in the city toward our better good. Then we'll have questions and answers, and we want to have as much time as possible for those. And then there'll be a little time at the end for networking and chitty chat. Again, I hope throughout the evening that you will take notes and be ready to talk back, so to speak, to President Shabazz when we're finished. And if during the presentation you'd like to look at the strategic plan, there are a couple ways to do that. If you have your smartphone and your smartphone is equipped to read QR codes, that's this little square thing that you see all over the world. For some phones, if you just open your camera and focus on that, a website will pop up. And if you click it, it'll take you right to a website. Usually that technology is used to sell you something, but in council, we're using it to kind of enhance our community engagement. Another way that you can always look at the strategic plan is to go to the City Council's website, which is www, very easy, wilmingtoncitycouncil.com/strategic-plan. It's on the bottom of every slide that you'll see here tonight. And then for some of you, you might have the strategic plan update in your folder, and if not, Tracy in the purple over at the table will give you a paper copy. But it's always available as part of how the City Council stays transparent, and you're welcome to have a copy when you leave today. And with that, I invite to the dais my new boss, the first woman president of Wilmington City Council, and this 107th session, President Hanifa Shabazz.
Thank you, Tanya, and thank you for everyone coming out this evening. I know it's a beautiful day outside, and I don't know you want to be in this wonderful Fletcher Brown Community Center, but I thank you all for coming out and holding this conversation with me. I also like to thank Mr. Michael Crumble, for the director of the Fletcher Brown Boys and Girls Club here on the Wilmington Northeast side, for hosting us this evening. I'm very excited about the things that he's doing in this amazing center for our children, and we want to applaud and appreciate the work that they're doing here for our community. I also just like to acknowledge some of our other leaders here. We have members from the mayor's office that are here with us. We have Ms. Jan Prado from Constituency Service here. We have Mr. Greg Morris, also from the mayor's assistant, Greg. And we have Captain Akil from the Wilmington Police Department and other gentlemen from the police department. We have Mr. Ray from the Land Bank. And I call him Mr. Ray, y'all, because I really can never get his name right, and I didn't want to mess it up, so he's Mr. Ray. You also see members from the Wilmington Housing Authority, the president of the board, Mr. James Spadola, and another member is Mr. Steve Washington. And we have a whole host of other political leaders. We see Pastor Ben, we see Minister Guy, Ms. Barbara Washam. Ms. Barbara Washam helped raise me on the east side, so it's always a pleasure to see her here. Members of City Council staff, thank you all for your support in making this all happen. And we wanted to have community conversations because you know how the best way to get to know a person or know what's really what their needs are is to communicate. And what's better way is to have a community communication conversation, excuse me. You know, but before I get started, it's always important to know who you're talking to. So many of you might know me as Hanifa Shabazz, either serving as 4th District Council member for the past 12 years and now as President of City Council. You know me in that capacity. But there's others of you who know me in other capacities, and I'd just like to know those who don't know all about who I am as Hanifa. Just let me take a moment just to share a little bit about who I am, and you get to know me a little better, a little on a personal side. As I said, I grew up on the east side of Wilmington, and I'm a product of the Wilmington public school system. I have 2 beautiful daughters, 5 fabulous grandchildren, and 1 amazing great-granddaughter. So as a parent, as a grandparent, you know I have that compassion and drive for our youth. Before I got started in public service, I was an entrepreneur. Many of you might recall my being owner of Honey's Bookstore, which was a bookstore that specialized in African American literature. We also had an art gallery as well. I'm proud to say that our enterprise was one of the first incubators in the city of Wilmington. We called the building Freedom Plaza 1, where we collaborated with other businesses. Not only did we have the bookstore and art gallery, but we also had Nzinga's Cultural Connection, which was a shop that specialized in African attire. We had a travel agency. And we also were the publishing office of the Drumbeat, which was another initiative that I did. And I was a publisher of a community newspaper that specialized in what was happening in the Black and Hispanic community. But as proud as I am as being an African here in America, we knew that it was important that our children know who and where they are, who and where they come from. So we sponsored the African Festival. The African Festival ran, how many of you remember the African Festival? So I see some hands. Woo-woo. The African Festival ran from almost 13 to 15 years, and it was a time for our community to come together and really demonstrate the great contributions we've made to society, to civilization. It was a time for all of us to come together. It was an example of what we working together with all of our various resources, what we could do to stand and demonstrate the greatness of the African diaspora. I also did not only just feed you through books and through the culture, but I also fed you for food. And I had Hanifa's Kitchen, known for the African Festival fish sandwich and African fries. Am I right? So these are some of the things that I did before I became a public service, which I'm just telling you a little bit about that because I want you to know that I'm just not as some people would tag me as a politician, I consider myself to be a public servant. I've been serving my community, fighting for my community, standing up for my community, demonstrating the greatness of our community, pulling our community together so that we could continue to be successful and be an example for our young people for quite some time. I'm proud to say that I was successful in getting into the field of public service, and I did so standing on 4 pillars. And those 4 pillars I call the 4 E's, because I felt that if I educated my community about who they are, what they could do, how they could use the political system, because the public system, local, county, and state government respond to what the needs of the people are. How do we get that message to those individuals? So the first was to educate my community on how the system works, which brought about empowerment, which was the second E, of empowering them to come together. And I'm proud to say that during my 12 years term as a 4th District Council member, that I was able to create and empower our community to what we know now as Eastside Rise. It started off as the Eastside Blueprint. It's now the Eastside Rise. In Southbridge, it was the SAM plan, Special Area Management Plan, which has resulted in us getting a wetland to address the 50 years of flooding that's been taking place in Southbridge. West Side Futures empowered our community to come together. How do we want to address the West Side? So I'm really, really proud of some of the work that I've been able to do by educating and empowering my community, which brings about an economic engine. Because if you don't have the economics, how do you get anything done? And lastly, in empowering all of that and implementing all of that, it results in a quality environment for us to live. So the 4 E's was education, empowerment, economics, and environment. That led me to now going to, say, if on outside of City Hall, if you want to get something done, you go inside City Hall. So I ran for office, and has served as the 4th District Council member for 3 terms, and then I took the plunge, and now here I am as the first woman of City Council. And so that's who Hanifa Shabazz is. So now you know who you're conversing with, and I hope that has given you a different perspective of me in understanding what you're going to hear today and what we hope that we would be able to do in the future. So as I said, the why we're here was to have a community conversation in a small, intimate, but diverse group, and wanted you to know what the city 107th session of council has done in its first term. And I say first term because the city council was comprised of 7 new council members, so passionate, so driven to make change. And how do you hold back all of that passion and all that change and all that interest of trying to make a better way? It was a minute trying to get us all together, as y'all know, but but in all of that, we have accomplished some many great things. And I'm going to share with you really quickly this evening that I think that it's going to be essential to see how things that have benefited you in your quality of life and where we have to go. So tonight is intended to be a report out and a progress report on council's work in the areas of public safety, the 2020 census, community and economic development, education, and most importantly, our youth. And after my presentation, I'm looking forward to I hope I've generated questions for us to have continued dialogue. Here you see is the example of the City Council's commitment to work towards the 10 priorities of our strategic plan. And I'm quite sure as you read them, you see that all of these are things that you would definitely want to have in your city, in your neighborhood, for your family. Over the course of nearly a year, council members worked collaboratively to come up with this strategic planning process to identify the priorities and set objectives on how that we were going to accomplish this in our 4-year term. In addition to devising mission statements for each of the committees, we needed a guiding direction, and we are very excited about how the strategic planning process has led us. This document is a living document. It's something that we review on a continuous basis, and with your assistance, we'll be looking forward to adding your thoughts, your comments, and your inputs to take us to the next level of its implementation. So first I would like to talk about what's always on everyone's mind is public safety. I would be remiss if I did not reiterate the amazing job that our own Wilmington Police Department has done in addressing the crime in our city, and I would like to give them a round of applause. A few examples of what we have done in this particular area. The WITN, our local TV station, which stands for Wilmington Information Television Network, we're one of the only cities that has its own local TV station, presented the Gun Violence Roundtable, which was held at the East Side Charter School, with input from City Council and the Wilmington Police Department. Additionally, a letter was sent to the Delaware General Assembly supporting various measures designed to combat gun violence. And I mean, numerous resolutions were sent to the General Assembly to assist us in dealing with gun violence. Something as simple as if a gun was used in a crime and it was registered in your name, you did not report it stolen, it was used in a crime, you held some responsibility for that gun. It might sound like a minor thing, but it's important to be able to track where people are getting guns, because you know of the practice of straw purchases. This was a way for us to ensure that straw purchases did not end up in one of our children's hands and commit a crime and take someone's life. Also, there was legislation. There was also a resolution in supporting the banned devices designed to the rate of firearms with the semi-automatic rifles. That was adopted into a House Bill 300. That was something that was stimulated from City Council to deal with the gun violence here in the city of Wilmington. There will be updates on the body cameras. I know you've heard information or talk about City of Wilmington adopting the use of body cameras. City Council also believes this is a good idea. We're working strongly with the chief and to find out how we can make that possible, economically feasible, and address the issue that it would cover. But it does. Those details have not been finalized. We also served as the recipient of the grant monies for the Wilmington Community Advisory Council. Many of you might have known that I requested that the Center for Disease Control to come into the city to address the epidemic proportion of gun violence that was happening in our city. I felt it in my spirit, and I'm proud of you too, that what's happening with our young children is not a natural phenomenon, that there's something wrong with that's causing our children to pick up a gun and to, kill someone. What was that? Well, I also saw that the Center for Disease Control had come into the state in lower Delaware because it was an epidemic of proportion of suicides of low-income white children in lower Delaware. So I said, if that's the case there, could they not come and investigate up here in northern part of the Delaware about the homicides? Well, I provided them loads of data because we've had many meetings about how we address our problems with our young people. I presented that data to the Center for Disease Control, and they saw what I saw. And they came into the city and they did an extensive investigation and provided us with recommendations on what we needed to do to address the violence that was plaguing our young people. And as you know, social services is something that is authorized by the state. So I had to work strongly with the governor, and at that time it was Governor Jack Markell, and he provided a strong support, as well as Governor Carney still is providing support to address the violence that we have here in the city. The result of that resulted in safe havens. We had 18 community centers that the state provided monies to stay open late at night and on weekends so that our young people have a safe place to go. I'm pleased to report that 2,843 youth participated in these late night activities. And it wasn't just for them playing basketball in the gym. We partnered with evidence-based programming that we know that would provide our young people some direction, some positive youth development, so that there was a place for them to go and get great information. They also was given a healthy nutritional meals. And I'd like you to know that the safe haven concept was originally a concept that started at City Council about maybe 10 years ago, but the state has picked up the funding of it. So now if you have any young people that need safe places to go, please make sure that they attend some of our safe havens. We also found that poverty was a major root cause of some of the issues that we're dealing with our young people. So we're working very diligently with the state as well as the mayor's administration to provide youth for over 400 young people for summer jobs. Our goal is to expand this so that children have jobs all year long, but we got to crawl before we walk. And we also are excited that it's not just summer youth jobs, but we're also a career development program. We've partnered with United Way and other organizations of how could we use this tool of summer employment to get our children going down a path of career development. Some of the things we also have done through the Wilmington Community Advisory Council is to put CITs, community intervention teams, on the street to try to intervene with possible crime initiatives that are coming, that our young people might find themselves involved in. So more details about that work, you can find it on our website, and copies of the annual report are on the table, so you can see what the Community Advisory Council has done. The 39 various organizations have come together to address the violence that's plaguing our community, and how we are addressing it, how you can get involved with it. So there's more information about that on the tables. As you can see in the picture, I know many of you probably called about the ATVs. Okay, and the excitement that our young people have of riding through the streets, the danger that it brings about. We did pass legislation to regulate that. We gave everyone time to get their ATV vehicle properly licensed, and all of the other requirements for it. And now it was another announcement that the police are going to enforce it. So if anybody who has the ATVs, that are in ATVs, to let them know that they will be confiscated if they don't have the proper licensing and the proper trolleys, or what is it, the trailer that they have to be attached to. One other thing we did for other safety, and I know this is a lot, but I want you to know just how hard your 107th session of council is working for you, is that we passed a resolution concerning trauma-informed treatments for children exposed to violence. We thought it was essential that the General Assembly make sure that there was not only our community centers, the staff of our community centers with safe havens, our bus drivers, our police department, and anyone engaged with our young people are able to recognize when our children are having a trauma episode. A lot of times we said our children are acting out, but we know that our children are really having a traumatic episode because of some adverse childhood experiences or some of the things that they're seeing in the neighborhoods today. So we're trying to put these precautions in place to be able to address the issues that our children are facing. And we did that by sending that resolution down to the General Assembly so that would take place. This is when I think we'll also reflect into what you know is needed in our neighborhood. We did a resolution encouraging the General Assembly in Dover to enact legislation regarding expungement. If you are arrested for a charge of some type and you were not found guilty, you still have a record. And so that record could hinder you from getting employment. It could hinder you from getting housing and any other opportunities. We feel it's essential that in order for us to move from one step to another, because you might got and be in the wrong place at the wrong time, you made a mistake, that you should get a better opportunity to be able to take advantage of life's opportunities. And so we're asking the General Assembly to do what we call an automatic expungement if you're not convicted of the crime that you've been arrested for. So, ladies and gentlemen, we will need your support in lobbying for some of these legislation that we request sent down to the General Assembly. So we would need your support in talking to your state representatives to provide support for that. Last but not least, we were excited about partnering with a local entrepreneur and having produced and distributed over 500 what we call LRI wallets. In the effort, LRI wallets are license, registration, and insurance wallets, and this was a preventive measure. When, if you get stopped by the police and you have to reach for your license and your registration. We've never had those kind of incidents here in Wilmington, but we were being proactive. And the wallet is clipped to the visor, and if you're stopped by the police, you just pull the visor down and you pull down the wallet. Your license, registration, insurance is right there, and your hands are here, so there's no mistake of you reaching for something and we have an incident in our city. So City Council thought it was essential that we put these out and do that preventive measure by putting out the 5,000 copies 5,000 wallets, and several of them we have a few left, are available on the table for your taking. So that's some of the things that we've done to keep Wilmington safe and secure. The next priority is the Census 2020. And I hope all of you are familiar, looking at you, I'm quite sure you have lived through a census count before. And we're very excited that the City of Wilmington is partnering with the other levels of government, the county and the state, to ensure that we can get as many residents counted as possible. So we've developed a census count committee. Did you know that somewhere near $14 million has been lost to inner cities due to an incomplete census count? You know that the census is where the numbers that comes through on our census is what gets us our federal dollars for some of our social issues. It helps us to determine how many congressional representatives that we have. It also helps us in doing our districts for city council. And it also helps us to determine how many representatives we have sent up to Congress in Washington. So it's essential that we are helped to get all of our neighbors, and now we're going to need to be the ones who actually ensure that we get our neighbors counted, because they hopefully trust you instead of a stranger knocking on the door getting their personal information. So there would be much more information you hear about the census count, how you could get involved with the census. There are also jobs available for people to assist with the census count, and any type of innovative idea you have of how to make this successful, so that the state of Delaware, the city of Wilmington, gets all the monies that is due them, because we're providing services to the residents, but we want to make sure that they're all counted so we can get our proper fair share. Another priority is growing Wilmington. And so the census is just the tip of the iceberg of how the Wilmington City Council and the city is driving hard to lean forward to keep Wilmington growing. Our public and green spaces are always under constant care. I think you've seen more parks being revitalized than we have in quite some time. And I'm excited about that, the collaboration between the administration and City Council to get that done. City Council did a resolution to approve the leasing of the Boehner Stadium with Salesianum, and this is going to enable us to have a world-class stadium for some of our local community football and athletic teams who go out of state and participate and come back with national awards, and they can't come back and celebrate in their own city and town in a stadium that they could be proud of. They can't invite their other state teams to come in and partner with them. This will afford them an opportunity to do so, and that will make us proud of them and them proud of themselves. We also approved a resolution to lease that of Kirkwood Street Park. Now, the only high school in the city of Wilmington now has a practice field, a turf practice field. It was the only school that did not have its own practice field. We had to put our young people from Howard into a bus and find a place for them to practice. Our children deserve more than that. It was a little controversial, but sometimes that's the hard part of the job that we have as city council, is making sure that our young people have what they need, and I always say by any means necessary. One of our proudest efforts in collaborative work was the revitalization and renovation of Eden Park. Eden Park is going to be a whole new park for our children to enjoy. Eden Park is used for where all the camps go. So if all of our camps go to Eden Park for summer camp, shouldn't it be the Stellar Park? Well, we thought so too. And so now there's, starting in June, it should be almost complete. There will be a new pools, new shower room, full turf field for our young people to have a great place to play on a regular basis. And this is the work of your 107th session of City Council, ladies and gentlemen. Not to mention our support of Ordinance 18039 that made the 76ers Fieldhouse possible. I mean, I know when you come off of 13 and you see that big stadium, 76ers, that has to make you feel good. To know that we have a brand such as 76ers in the city of Wilmington. Not only do we have those types of games coming into the city of Wilmington, but the host of youth programming that are taking place at that field for our young people, almost free of charge. Our young people have an opportunity to partner and learn the sports from individuals such as some of the basketball players at 76ers is renowned. And of course, transportation is essential because we were right in the middle of it all. We supported a resolution supporting the proposal for a direct-to-the-airport train line from Wilmington to Philadelphia. So I know how many times you get tired of driving to Philly. You'll now be able to get on the train and take you right to the Philadelphia airport. So we're working on many things to make Wilmington I like that to make Wilmington a small metropolitan city with all the amenities that other cities have. That's what we're working to make Wilmington be. Community and economic development. Stabilizing Wilmington. As I look around and see many of you, I know that you're all from various neighborhoods. In fact, I took, my daughter, Sally Mata, to show where the different places in what district she lived in. And as you ride around the city, you see everyone was talking about all the revitalizations happening in downtown Wilmington is happening on the riverfront. But you now can see the upcoming stabilization is happening right in our neighborhoods. The city of Wilmington established a land bank with the title of the Wilmington Neighborhood Conservatory Land Bank. And it's a 501c3 nonprofit organization whose mission is to return vacant, dilapidated, abandoned, and delinquent properties to productive use in order to strengthen and revitalize our neighborhoods and spur economic development. And that's a mouthful. And what it means is that those vacant properties that's been in your neighborhood for so long are now going to come online. It also means that individuals who are right here in your neighborhood who are renters would have an opportunity to have home ownership. It means that the value of our houses, which have gone down from when you first bought them, the values now could go up. So all of that is all beneficial to each one of you on how we collectively are going to be able to build revitalize our neighborhoods. It's going to take hard work. We've had working very diligently to come up with the right legislation that's going to be able to do that without causing harm. It's going and harm to those who live own our own properties in our neighborhood. But you can feel confident that from your input and your communications and conversations to us of understanding what it is we're trying to do, working along with us to get it done, I think you'll see that we are headed in the right direction. There's several programs, one that I'm really excited about with the land bank is putting into effect, and that's called the homesteading program. I think many of you might have known that Trolley Square did a homesteading type program, and that's how, not Trolley Square, I'm sorry, Trinity Vicinity. And so we're looking to do something very similar where we've been able to identify some of the vacant properties that are not in a really, really bad condition, and make those properties available for local homeowners to acquire them at a mere cost of $1 and be able to get the necessary renovation costs and bring them all back online. So our goal is to ensure by its name of the land bank, the Neighborhood Conservancy Land Bank, that we're trying to conserve our neighborhoods and to bring them back online. Some of them that places that where you grew up, you would like to go back and live in that neighborhood again. But only way that we could do that is to invest in the programs that the land bank is putting forth. So that's one that we're excited about. And we did it with mind of how do we get this done, whereas it provides support for the community. So working along with the Real Estate and Housing Department, Director Bob Weir, we've offered 2 contract community development information sessions where we invited our local contractors to come and hear what it is that we're trying to do, tell them what they need to do to prepare themselves to be able to get to do some of this work in revitalizing these vacant properties, how they could work along with the City of Wilmington and some of our facade programs, and be part of the revitalization of our neighborhoods. We also did a home buyers program. We had invited potential or interested home owners, individuals who are currently renting. I'm quite sure all of you might know someone who was renting a house or apartment for $800, $900, $1,200 a month. If those individuals pay that on a regular basis through one of these programs, they could qualify for a mortgage. We just need to be able to give them necessary support to get them mortgage ready, partner them with a house that they could get the necessary renovation mortgage to fix, partner them with a local contractor, renovate our neighborhoods, and Wilmington will come back to be a beautiful place that we all know it to be. There's several pieces of other pieces of legislation that's in the pipeline to address the blight, the vacant properties, the absent landlords, and I'll give you just a list of those. So see, ladies, I just want you to know your council is working hard to address the issues that are plaguing our communities. One of them is a problem landlord list. If there's a landlord who has history of having bad properties, you need to know who they are so you just don't rent from that landlord. We're working on legislation to increase the rent dwelling unit business license fee. Working to provide for civil fines for owners of rental properties and vacant properties, and to increase the vacant registration fees. All of these are addressing the numerous amount of vacant properties we have in the City of Wilmington so that they can be accountable and be able to bring them back online. Council is also very supportive, along with the administration, of trying to find additional budgetary funds to address the housing initiatives, and that's proposed in the 2020 budget. I was talking to a young lady today in reference to individuals who own their own home but don't have the necessary income to be able to bring it up to code. We're working diligently to find the necessary monies to assist homeowners to be able to get grants and possibly low-income loans that could help them to address the housing issues that they have, increase the value of their home, and then grow into an equitable state in their households. So we're working diligently on that. Thank you. You can applaud. Thank you. Another one of our priorities is Wilmington to be a resident and visitor-friendly Wilmington. I know. Like I said, we're in tune with what your issues are. We know what the issues are. There's a resolution now, and the administration is partnering with us on an effort to make Wilmington more friendly to visitors and residents, particularly around the Central Business District area. A property valuation request for the mayor to look at the Wilmington Parking Authority parking lots. Are they really providing us the value that they really can provide to the city? Can we do something else to get more value from them? You never know until you do the research, and so we're working on that as well. There also is an ordinance that was passed. We have certain areas in the downtown district, they call the XY and W zones, because as you know, with all the development happening downtown Wilmington, the residency numbers have increased tremendously. And if everybody moves in downtown Wilmington and brings a car, where will they park? Not only that, we also have a residential college, the Delaware College of Art and Design, where you have students who live on the campus of the college downtown. Where do they park their cars? So we had to do some zoning so that they had the necessary parking that they need. And so we're still trying to work that out because it's a moving target. The residency continues to increase, the students go in and out. How do we do that with the new restaurants coming on, our entertainment venues? How do we address parking? So that's a constant issue that we're constantly looking at and trying to develop, and always welcome input from you, the citizens. As you can see, though, that we covered the information regarding our Park Mobile parking payment system. We're trying to use technology. You don't have those coins for those parking meters. There is a parking app that you can put on your phone where you can pay for parking, and it will advise you when you got half an hour, 15 minutes left on your meter, and you can extend the time so you don't get that $40 ticket. So I advise everyone who, if you frequent downtown, get the Park Mobile app. It works wonders to help you to not get that $40 ticket because you're running back to the parking space and it has expired. For those of you who don't know, if you get a parking ticket, if you pay the parking ticket within 48 hours? Yeah, 48 hours, you get a $10 discount. The ticket is only $30. So we're trying to take in consideration any way we can to oblige you there. One other thing that we are realizing now as we're looking at the revitalization of our neighborhoods is that their needs of goods and services are going to be needed inside the neighborhoods as we get more, the population expands. So what do we do about commercial businesses in our community neighborhoods? Where do they park? Where does the employees park? So we're working on trying to come up with a solution for that. We haven't gotten there yet, but I want you to know that if you're looking at having a business in your neighborhood, that we are trying to address that issue as well. A prosperous and a sustainable Wilmington. We have identified priorities related to city government operations with objectives of enhancing revenue opportunities, controlling our expenditures, and instituting personnel and financial policies. As you can see, there's two pieces of legislation that was done. The compensation study was done by the mayor's administration, but City Council has reviewed it in great detail, and we're working to see how do we address just that. There was executive and managerial salary benchmarks, and we compared the employees of the City of Wilmington's salaries across this executive and managerial plan as to those in that same field, and ensure that we're paying our employees of the City of Wilmington adequate wages, and also giving us the opportunity to be able to get the people with the right type of expertise to help us run the City of Wilmington. The ordinance 18045 is legislation related to the rate stabilization review. I know this sounds like kind of just legislative jargon to you, but the benefit to you is that it helps us to maintain the financial stability of the city, which I know is very important to you. It provides you with essential and quality services, and most of all, it limits the need for us to increase taxes and water and sewer rates. That's something you're interested in. I think so. So again, it's legal jargon to you, as I stated, as a stabilization rate, but what it does, the benefit you, is that it helps us to make sure that we are able to run our government without having to raise taxes or water rate freeze. And I'm glad to say that in this budget, there was not a property tax increase. A minor proposed water sewer rate increase because our infrastructure is so old, but there was not an increase in property taxes. So I think we're doing very good in stabilizing the financial stability of our city. Education and youth. Obviously, our young people, their environment, and a healthy, their health through the Wilmington Community Advisory Council, their education are very important and strong focus of myself and members of council. I'd like to give you a few examples of some of the things that we've done to address that. And the healthy Wilmington is one of our greatest assets. We passed a resolution to support the General Assembly to raise the tobacco and purchasing age from 18 years old to 21. And why is that so important? You know, we have the electronic cigarettes now, and the, what's it called, the vapors, and it's something else that look like Juuls. That's right, and Juuls. See, that's those, our young people know about these things. Well, they look like, and they have the flavors of candy. They're very, very accessible, and so we know that it's very bad for our children's health. Is that the nicotine quantity is almost 5 times that of cigarettes, and it's again another health issue that we're plaguing in our community. So we needed to change the age from 18 to 21 so that our young people would not have access to this smoking device. We also was legislation passed that those devices were not easily accessible in corner stores because it looks like candy. Looks like, and children can come in and parents think it's candy or something because it's so easily accessible. We're passing legislation that those type of things must be kept behind the counter and have to be asked for with identification of the proper age. This is to prevent our children from getting easy access to these things. My colleagues and I called upon the General Assembly to enact legislation requiring a full-time mental health counselor and staff at every elementary and middle school. We thought this was so important because 90% of Delaware elementary schools do not employ a school social worker, and the ratio of students to school counselors and school psychologists far exceed best practices. With the issues that our young people are dealing with, we need to put the necessary support systems in our schools to protect our children and to provide them the kind of services that they need. I want to give you an example. A young lady said that her granddaughter was hit in the head by the bathroom door because another student was having a traumatic episode because of an issue that took place at school. So in some instances, without a trauma-informed staff seeing what was happening with this young girl, would think that the young girl was being bad, doing something improper that caused to harm another child. But because the staff is trauma-informed care trained, they saw what was happening with that young girl, got that young girl some assistance, okay, and was not reprimanded or expelled from school, still dealing with the trauma that she was dealing with. So we know this is what's happening with our young people, and we are making demands that the top proper support systems are put into place in our educational institutions and in our community centers to address until we get this trauma under control. We also passed, talking about better health for our young people, we passed an ordinance that regarding beverages offered in children's meals. They're very high in sugar. They are nothing healthy about them. There's not fruit juices. And we know that there's a growing increase of obesity in our young people. Generationally, they're destined for obesity. So we passed that ordinance so that there would be an option, that the family can have an option to not have that high fructose sugar drink in the drink for our children, but to give our parents options. We also passed an ordinance, which means it becomes law, that the renovations of all of our parks that we have throughout the city, that they are inclusive parks and playgrounds, meaning that any child who might have some form of disability can also enjoy the facilities and the equipment in the park. That it accommodates a child in a wheelchair or a child in any other type of disability capacity, that we ensure that our parks are renovated to include all of our children regardless of what their life issue and situation might be. Myself and State Representative Stephanie T. Bolden, we are members of the National League of Cities, and the benefit of going out of town to those type of conferences, we learn what other cities are doing. We brought back the prescription cards where it offers 24% off of prescriptions for individuals who might not have health care assistance. There are applications for the prescription cards over on the table, so if you know someone who might use it, please take one, and I hope that they can enjoy some of the benefits of that. We want a Wilmington for all ages. And I talked about, just our everyday family and how we try to address some of those social needs, but also we talked about our young people, but we also have some situations that we must address our other most precious jewel, and that's our aging seniors. So we work with the administration. I'm ahead of myself. Excuse me. I'm ahead of myself. This resolution was to include the sexual harassment and sexual misconduct teaching in the sex education class. With all the various songs, films, and videos that's talking about female and male relationships, how do we ensure that our children know the proper way to conduct themselves so they don't find themselves in a sexual misconduct or harassment situation? So we ask that the General Assembly to include this type of education in the sexual education courses that they teach in class. Some of these things are unorthodox, but we know that what's happening in our communities, that we have to put these type of things in place to address exactly that. We also worked to recognize National Bully Prevention Month, and we encourage the General Assembly to consider issuing a new anti-bullying report. You might have remembered the young lady who died from her from a fight down at Howard. There was just another young girl who died also in Tennessee when she got in a bullying situation. So bullying is a epidemic here, and I won't say epidemic, but it's a growing issue that our children are facing. Another resolution that I thought was that might be kind of shocking to you, that we encourage the prohibiting against suspending and expulsion of kindergarten students through second grade. Our kindergartens and second graders, because remember, I talked about the young people who are dealing with trauma, who are reacting to adverse childhood experiences, and that's all the way down to our kindergartens. And they were being expelled and suspended from school. So where does our working parent do with that child? How do we address that issue while the child is young? And as you can see, there are other resolutions that we've done to address Wilmington of all ages. It has been stated this evening the City Council is not involved in all matters related to city life, because we have other levels of government that address those, and that's our county and our state legislation. But we often have a seat at the table to help support your voice and give input to that and appropriating funds to them. So this conversation today will help us to make sure that we are addressing those things. Here are some other things that we have done to address children of all ages. When the film Black Panther came, City Council sent over 100 children from various schools to see the film. It was the most exciting thing for those young people to be there and get a chance to see a positive reflection of themselves and learn a little bit more about their culture. And we were proud of council to be able to send 100 children to that to that movie. Our Youth Career Development Program, employing, as I stated before, about 400 young people to make sure they not just have a summer job, but they also are going on a career path. Employment is so important in the city of Wilmington. Councilwoman Xanthia Oliver has hosted several job fairs with over 20 employers for individuals taking resumes and conducting on-site interviews, and have resulted in many individuals now gainfully employed. We passed a resolution that was request that the administration launch a senior identification program. Now I'm talking about our older population. The senior identification program is assured that we are able to identify where every one of our seniors are, those who opt to be participate in the program, because after the age of 65, there are exemptions for your taxes, there are exemptions for your water reduction rates for your water, if we know that you are of the age and you qualify based on income. And I know that the level of income was quite low, and there is legislation currently in the pipeline to increase what your income could be to have you qualified for this senior identification program. There also was requirement that it be renewed every 3 years. You're always a senior once you're a senior, right? So we took that stipulation out. We took that stipulation out, and once you're registered, you're always registered. You will always get the exemption as long as you and the property is still in your name, there's no major indication of your income increasing, and most time that won't happen either. So we said, why not just make it standard once you have registered? So we're thinking, exactly how things actually are happening here in the city and how it's going to make your quality of life better. And I think this was a great move, and I'm excited to say this was an initiative that I spearheaded, because I know that we have a growing population of seniors. A lot of them don't know that you qualify for this, we also have, it's the best great way for us to be able to identify where our seniors are when it comes time for, do you need a fan when the heat gets too hot? We know the seniors there. We have a way to be able to check on our seniors to make sure they're okay. We just need to put things in place to make sure we keep our eye on our most precious resident, and that is our seniors. One other thing I'd like to just give some attention to, you see the word a youth master plan. And a youth master plan is done in many other cities. And that is when all the major stakeholders, your government, your social service agencies, your community, your corporate business world, get together and make a plan of how everyone is going to work together to build an environment for our young people to live, grow, and thrive. If their businesses know where they plan to be within the next 10 to 20 years or 5 to 10 years, they're going to need a particular type of workforce for that. So they must contribute to their education, to the positive programming, to the support systems of how do we grow that population. And that's what a youth master plan does. I think I've seen it work in other cities. It's done quite well. And as Wilmington continues to grow like it's growing, I think it's going to be a great thing for us to have as well. It closes the net for our children don't fall through the many cracks that they're falling through, because we work very much in silos. How do we work together to make sure that there's an environment for our young people to grow and thrive? We have a Wilmington Youth Leadership Commission. This commission is developing leadership into our young people. Thank you. Educating them and preparing them to work together as teams to come up with innovative solutions for them to have a better way of life. This Youth Leadership Commission is in the office of the mayor, and they serve as the advocate and voice in the shaping of public policy for the city of Wilmington. A transparent and well-respected city. City Council put together a resolution to address the filling of vacancies. As you know, there was a vacancy in the 1st District. It was very controversial on the process that's been used for many years. Did not fit the standard of desires of this council, so we changed the process. It doesn't completely do everything everyone wanted, because they wanted us to have a special election, but that's something that's done by the General Assembly. But we feel really good about the resolution that was passed that would address the concerns of council and the citizens of the city of Wilmington. And we are glad to have Councilwoman Linda Gray, who went through that process, who is now filling that seat. We updated the ethics provisions to ensure that all the ethics standards were met, and processes in place to ensure that everyone fulfilled those ethic provisions. We also did an ordinance to regarding human rights to update the Civil Rights Commission here in the city of Wilmington. And we declare Wilmington a city for the Convention of the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. Believe it or not, there is such a thing, and we wanted to make sure that the city of Wilmington was one that recognized and had things in place that did not allow discrimination for women to take place here in the city of Wilmington. Well, I've been talking for a while, y'all, and I hope that some of the things that I've told you, you know, you could see the great work the council has been doing for you, that has addressed some of your community concerns. And now, I'd like to begin with some interaction conversation back with you. If you have any questions you might have about anything I presented, anything we need to do, I open the floor for conversation.
Thank you, President.
Here's the microphone.
Oh, here we go. Thank you all for your patience. We had the lights down because you might not have been able to see the slides, so sorry for the bright light situation now, but thank you so much for your patience. Council President really wanted to give substance so that you could really see the actual work. There's work going on in those meetings, and we really appreciate your patience and kind of just getting a glimpse of that. What we'd like to do now is to invite conversation. I'm going to do that by bringing a mic to you when President acknowledges you. And in between, she'll answer some of the questions that you have asked. I will say some of the questions that we got are kind of generic things about like trash pickup, cleanliness in the neighborhood, how to know when to expect the city to come and clean your street and things like that. Those are questions you can have very easily answered by calling the Office of Constituent Services. Jen Prado is here. She is the director of that division of the mayor's office, and she has business cards on the table for the Office of Constituent Services, and those colleagues of ours are extremely customer service savvy. They really understand how the city works, so everything from how do I get the trees trimmed around my street lights to we had a major storm, when is recycling coming this week? They can help you answer those questions. So it's good for probably everybody to just take one of those cards because we all need them at one time or another. President will take questions if you raise your hand. She has the kind of more detailed questions in her hand, and I'll come around and make sure you're talking to the mic so that the folks who are watching on WITN will be able to hear you.
Aaron, I seen your hand first, and then Mr. Majette. While she's getting the mic, I really appreciate everyone's patience. It was very detailed, but in order for you to know that the legislative branch of government, we are detailed and legislatively driven. So it's important that you know the laws that we put in place to make your life better. So thank you for your patience.
Why don't you start by telling us your name?
My name's Erin Goldner, and thank you again, Madam President, for the wonderful presentation. You'd mentioned the Youth Master Plan, and I wanted to know if we were actually looking at particular cities as examples that compare to Wilmington, so maybe I could do a little research and learn more about what we're looking at.
Well, if you Google Youth Master Plan, the numerous cities will come up. Denver, Columbia, Ohio, Colorado. They will come up to show, and comparing as which ones are similar to Wilmington, but you know, there's not many cities that fit our demographics because we are small. But you get an understanding of how those cities did implement a youth master plan and the benefit that it did for the children. Mr.
You can
Majette?
start by telling us your name.
My name is William Majette, and thank you, Council President. It was a very comprehensive presentation. You covered everything. And the moderator mentioned there were a lot of generic questions about city, street cleaning, cutting grass. But I guess as a general comment, the mayor had an initiative. He said he was going to want a more clean Wilmington. And I know L&I is the basic driver of that. And I understand they don't have that many enforcers to go around to check, but we need to really get serious about cleaning the city up. I mean, a lot of the landlords that you mentioned are absent or don't really care, and as the code enforcers go around checking individual properties, they should really get serious about this, and because this is just basic. I think if we can get people to understand it, we need a clean Wilmington, and we need to have our city be more proactive in really enforcing that. It would help. And that's just the general, that's how I feel about it, that we need to just clean the city up. One thing that bothers me is when these landlords, or excuse me, in the newspaper, when they are looking at properties in Wilmington, it's always a good investment opportunity. They want people to come in here to rent and just to use it or flip it or anything like that. But we need to really promote home ownership. I know people have to, I had to rent before I bought, and I know you need to have that, but they need to be taught after you're going to live somewhere eventually, whether you rent or buy. So I'm just hoping that the city really gets proactive and really enforcing our codes in terms of property upkeep.
And your point is well taken, Mr. Majetti, and I can tell you that I know that there has been an increase of L&I inspectors. We tried to increase that. There's been a major effort. The first thing we had to do was identify who was a renter and who's a homeowner. And there's been a lot of work that's been done to be able to do that, and we realized that the city is almost over 44% renters. In some areas, it's 77% renters. Then we had to identify who all of those property owners are, and so we are definitely, there is effort to do that, which is one reason why the Wilmington Neighborhood Conservatory Land Bank was designed and created, so that the vacant properties, how do we get them back online? And we're working diligently on blight legislation to deal with some of the vacant blighted properties. So there's a lot of things to do in addressing that. I know that there is a partnership with several nonprofit organizations who are being hire individuals from the neighborhoods to start cleaning up the neighborhoods. We just had the community clean up this past weekend. So all your points is well taken, and understand that this session of council hears that. And even some of the properties that are home ownership, we know that it's important that we come up with a way to provide support to our low-income homeowners. How do they maintain those houses and bring them back online? So all your points are well taken, and we're working diligently on it. And I would encourage everyone to come to your civic association meetings, because you know more what needs to be done in your intimate neighborhoods. And so by you coming to your neighborhood, your civic associations, and providing us with recommendations, organizing cleanups, addressing particular vacant properties as a nuisance property, we need that input. So on Channel 22, it shows when all your civic associations times and meeting times are, and we really need, that's another reason this community conversations is so important, to let the community know we need to hear from you so we can address that. So thank you very much for your input.
Just a reminder that this is a good time, as you think of these questions that are being asked and answered, to fill out your survey. Our colleague Tracy Owens will be glad to collect them. That's another way we'll get information from you.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Zakia Minka, and I'm a question on this youth master plan.
Yeah.
Is it in effect now?
No, it's an initiative that we are working towards. We see that it's something that we think would be very beneficial to the city.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and so once it's up and running, how do you get the youth involved? Because there was a couple of other things that you were saying, and I'm like, well, how do the kids know that they can actually participate in all these things?
Sure.
Because it's a good skeleton. It's a good skeleton, but I'm like, where's the meat?
I understand. With the efforts of the Wilmington Community Advisory Council, we have youth ambassadors, and our youth ambassadors, once we finish developing the recommendations, finding collaborative organizations who are doing evidence-based positive youth programming. Once we got all that together, we said, now how do we get the young people to come into the safe havens, come to the programs? So we're in our community engagement efforts of our work. So we have identified some youth ambassadors, partnering along with the Wilmington Youth Leadership Commission, who is working along with many other youth organizations already out there. We're trying to be the thread or the fiber that connects all the youth groups together. So communicating to our young people, as you might know, is a difficult job because you have to talk their language, the way they hear it, through the mediums that they listen to and respond to. So we needed our young people to do that, and we're working on that now, is to figure that all out, put the resources behind them, and to do that. So stay tuned for more of that. And one of the tools that our youth ambassadors use is the word POWER, and POWER is an acronym for People and Organizations of Wilmington Engaged in Reform. And so we're trying to use that power as whenever they see that power sign, they know, oh, that's one of those youth programs that's, that is, as kids would say, that's lit for me to participate in. So was that right? Did I say that right?
Did you say lit?
I say lit. You gotta talk their language.
I'm trying.
So we know that we can't do this for youth without youth. And so there is many efforts. You have the Youth Warehouse that's working over Kingswood. They have a cohort of youth coming together to address exactly that, getting this word out of where our young people are. You heard a lot about things that we're doing to address our young people, but it's not an easy task. But we're, again, coming to civic associations, we'll be able to pass that information on as often as possible when we're having a youth initiative.
Awesome.
And any ideas you have too, Ms. Akira, I would love to have it.
And also, the number at our Parks and Recs department is 576-3810. This is the time of year where there's a lot of stuff going on, for those of you who may not know. Stand up, tell us who you are.
Renee Evans, I'm from the Northeast Civic Association. First of all, thank you for certainly the details that you shared with us on this afternoon. You answered several of my questions, individually about, particulars and things that the city is working on. One thing that caught my attention very much when you talked about the ordinance passed for the kid from kindergarten to second grade not being expelled from school. I worked in the psychiatric field for many, many years. I wanted to, could you share with me a little bit about how the schools handle, they're not expelling the children, but is there something specifically in place for mental health counseling for them and the family? Because obviously they must be very traumatized for them to get to that point. It's good that they're not being expelled any longer, but I thought, it didn't say on the chart, but there must be some more that you already have implemented to help these children to heal.
Yes, ma'am. As you heard, one of the resolution I sent to the General Assembly was that there would be mental health service operators in all kindergarten and elementary schools. So we're make sure that those type of individuals are in the schools to be able to assist the child when they're having this traumatic episode and not result in expulsion. There also has been training for the educators to be able to recognize a traumatic episode that the child is having, which sometimes we always say that the child's acting out is bad, because we always ask the child, what's wrong with you, instead of what happened to you. So we're making sure that our educators and our schools for individuals are trained in that. There also is a recipe book, we call it. It's a book that we put together for individuals that are helping a family in such a situation where they know where they can refer them to integrated services that could assist them. So we try to be very comprehensive in addressing the issue with having the people in place and then having the references of where they can refer the family to get support services. Okay? Yes, ma'am. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. Oh, I'm sorry. You're next. Okay. Sir.
Hi, how you doing, Madam President? My name is Ron Handy. I work over here, A. Fletcher Brown. I'm the community liaison. Community Liaison and Team Services. One of my concerns when I came over here to this site, not just this site, but particular, we have the safe havens for the youth and everything, and that's great. But when I look at here at night, when I look at our lightings and I look at the trees, it's uninviting. So if you're standing on Vanderbilt Avenue, it actually looks like we're closed. So if we want to have people coming here, we want to invite them to come here. You know, we're working on this signage, we're working on lightings and asking. But my biggest issue is when we let out from the safe haven, these kids still have to walk those streets. So how do we make that safe for them? Yes, it's great that they're here and have an opportunity to engage with some mentors and everything, but they still have to leave here. So I know from past experiences, when we make this place brighter, we make it more inviting, some of those elements tend to stay away.
Okay. In this, thank you for that point. In this 2020 budget, there is resources and to put LED lighting throughout the city. And you know, many of the street lights some are owned by Delmarva and some are owned by the city. So they're working with Delmarva to address the lights that they have and putting LED lighting, and then right behind that, the city of Wilmington is coming to put, I think it's about 6,000 lights throughout the city. Then the goal is to put LED lighting in all of them, which gives a much more brighter view, footprint of the lights, as well as to trim back the necessary trees. When I was in the 4th District, I did a Light Up the 4th District initiative, and I gave all the civic associations maps of their neighborhood, identify where every street light was, and they were to tell us whether the light was dim, whether it was out, or whether it was covered by a tree. That gave us a walking map for us to give back to Public Works, and they went back and trimmed the trees. Delmarva fixed the lights, or we fixed the lights. So again, that's that citizen and the government working together to address a major issue, but know that we knew about our lighting situation, and the LED lighting is coming throughout the city. Thank you.
Ma'am.
I'd like to take an opportunity to recognize Councilwoman Xanthia Oliver, who has joined us. She is the representative for this 3rd District. Right here where we are. Yes, ma'am.
Hello.
Hi.
Ooh, I didn't know it was going to be that loud. My name is Serena Walker, and basically, excuse me if I'm like ignorant and you said this already, but how do you access the land banking programs?
Very good. Well, there's a website, the Wilmington Neighborhood Conservatory Land Bank, and you'll be able to see the details of the programming as well. In fact, we have a representative from the land bank here. If you might want to touch base with him before you leave, Mr. Ray. Wave your hand, Mr. Ray. Okay. And there's information on the table about the land bank and its programming. The homesteading program that I referenced briefly is going to launch early June. So I'm really encouraging individuals who believe that they too are ready to become a homeowner, and they're somewhat credit ready. Not necessarily you need a high credit number, because of the program, the houses that we're going to launch for this beginning initiative will only require, we say maybe $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, maybe if not even that much in renovations. And if you've been able to pay a rent of $1,000 consistently, you should be able to qualify for $60,000, $70,000 203K mortgage. We have organizations that's going to work with individuals to qualify for this, because the goal is to get people from renters to home ownership, like you said. And we want local residents to be the homeowners. We don't want outside investors. We want eventually we're going to end up having outside investors, but our first effort and initiative is to ensure that the revitalization of our neighborhoods is done by local individuals, whether you live there as well as doing the renovation work. So you can see Mr. Ray, and there's more information on the table about land banking. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Joy Harrison. I'm here on behalf of AmeriHealth Caritas, a Medicaid provider for the state of Delaware.
I know you look familiar.
Yeah. So I have two questions, and I'll piggyback off of the land banking question. So I know you said you are looking for Wilmington residents to have access to this first. Is that a requirement, though? So if someone from the Newcastle or, surrounding areas, if they were to apply, would that disqualify them because they're not a Wilmington resident?
It would not, because you will become a Wilmington resident.
Okay.
So not at all.
Okay. And then also my second question is, I know that you guys are implementing the counselors in the schools, the mental health counselors in the school. Have you guys considered mindfulness and meditation, that being implemented into all the schools, or training for the teachers and staff as well?
We haven't gotten that holistic. We haven't got that holistic in those type of things, and we know it's beneficial, but it's something that we can explore. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Stephen Brown. I work here at Brown's Boys and Girls Club too. I had two questions. One, I may have missed the first one. It was about the homesteading program. Does that apply to businesses, vacant businesses as well, or commercial sites?
There is a component. Homesteading is just one of the many programs that the Land Bank will be implementing, and commercial properties is included in that list of other programs. But homesteading is just the very first step. So stay tuned, get information from the desk, as well as have a conversation with Mr. Ray regarding any possible commercial properties.
Okay. My other question kind of piggybacks off of what he was saying. What is being done with these companies who violate codes when they come and they do work? Say they might have a dumpster and they have trash hanging all outside the dumpster. They're doing, like right now on Washington Street, there's work being done. You don't know that the road is closed until you pull right up on 27th for Washington. If I had more notice coming down 31st or 32nd, I may have took an alternate route. Like these companies, they don't do these same things when they're working in Bear, Newcastle, or other areas. But when they're in the city of Wilmington, they're like allowed to work without flaggers, and they violate codes. I've done roofing, so I know things that has to be done in certain areas. And when I see it, those codes aren't obeyed or whatever in Wilmington, like what is being done to stop that?
Well, first I'd like to say, and then I'll let Councilman Oliver, who wants to put some input in that, if we don't know it, we can't address it. Okay, so we need you to advise. You can call constituency services. Ms. Prado is right there, and her card is there, and let us know that this type of thing is happening so that we can, enforce them and make them and hold them accountable. But that's why, again, the citizens and working together, we try to be everywhere, but you are our eyes and ears of what's happening in our community. So we need you to let us know that this is happening, that dumpster is that way, so we can send an inspector down there to address it. Councilwoman Oliver?
Thank you, President Hanifa Shabazz. I'm working on that same issue you just stated, which would be Bill 4645.
It's on. You just got to hold it to your mouth. You probably turned it off. Here, come to the microphone. Come to the microphone while she fixes that.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm working on Bill 4645, which requires the businesses on the corners and the 3rd District and throughout the city to remove their garbage, rubbish, basically have the proper trash cans out in front of their businesses, because we have so many of businesses in our communities who just have trash everywhere, and you wonder why we have all these rodents and raccoons and rats and mice. And we also have a list with over at least 500 or 800 individuals, and the president is working to get the governor and the mayor involved to put some money into the city to, and I met with Senator Darius Brown this morning to set some traps in our community, because they are running wild, and that's because we are in their habitat. And I just wanted to say, with that being said, that the president is always pretty modest, but she is really doing a great job. And someone said, well, why is she coming out now? And I said, look, she has to come out and put out her platform. She's been working so hard for us internally, so y'all don't get a chance to see her. So other people, everybody's up for re-election. She's up for re-election. She's coming around talking to everybody. But I still like to tell everybody, we go through it, but let me tell you, she is doing an excellent job. And let me tell you, y'all need to really, and a lot of this is right on channel 22. So if you look on 22, you'll see what's going on. So her next event is Friday, May the 17th, and I think you're doing a good job. And come to City Council, you'll see what's going on. And I'm so glad to see Captain Fahim here, and I love you, and I just want to let you know I love you.
Well, okay. Honestly, I just needed to come out of 9th floor. Because many of you know me, I've been, one who's always down in the community. And taking on this position as president kept me in the 9th floor, and I needed to come back and see the people. So that's the driving force while I'm here, Councilwoman Oliver. And we needed the public to know all the things we've done. We had hiccups when we first got together, and there was always some different types of perceptions that was based on council. But I wanted you to know that through all of that, this is what your council has been doing for you. This is what we have been able to accomplish and make sure things are moving forward and moving the city forward. So do we have any other questions?
We're at 7:45. We need to start packing up at 8, so we'll take the last 2 questions that I saw here. If there's anything that wasn't answered, please be sure to write it down. If you
Put the microphone to your mouth.
I'm sorry. If you didn't hear your question answered, please write it down on the question form and leave it with us, and we will respond to you if you give us your email. We'll make sure we guide you in the right direction.
It's something about license and inspection.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not complaining because, whenever we call them out, they will come and they will address our issues, and I appreciate that. But however, there is this one home in our neighborhood where we have been battling for 15 years.
Wow.
Yes, if not 20, for them to fix up their home.
It's vacant?
No, it's not vacant. They live there. It was some kind of legal stuff going on, but that's over with now. But the last time license inspection was called out there, they talked to them. And what's going on is that, we have sub pumps because, in the basement, we have sub pumps. So they do not have their sub pump connected correctly. They have it so that the water runs out of their basement in the alleyway, because we have an alleyway, in the alleyway and down on other people's property. Yes, and the water is dirty. All right, and then in the summertime, it stinks because it's hot. All right, the last time they came out, they said that they talked to the people, and they said, well, they can't fix it correctly because what they're supposed to do is put it going through the main drain so it won't run out in the alleyway. They said they can't connect it correctly because their main drain is clogged. And that was an acceptable answer. But to me, that's not acceptable, because I know when I had that same situation, license and inspection told me to connect it to the main drain, and I did that. And so I'm not understanding why this household is not forced to get the main drain unclogged and fix the stuff up like it's supposed to be.
And I hear your point. And I really recommend that you have a conversation with Ms. Prado over there so she can get the specifics, and we can follow up. But I want to say this. This is why we're working so diligently on our blight legislation, because there are issues with occupied home ownership that need to be enforced. But we want to make sure that it does not cause harm. So it's hard to enforce on some and then not on the others. So you can see why that blight legislation is a delicate issue that we're working on in City Council. And again, we really need to hear from you of how we could do it so that we make it an equitable enforcement and that it accomplishes what all needs to be done in the revitalized neighborhood. Because we have 3 types of housing. You got vacant properties, you have rental properties, you have home ownership. And it's trying to make legislation that governs all 3 of them equitably, and is a task. So some areas we're going to have to be strong and have teeth in them so that we can enforce it. And that means that even the homeowner, even though they might need financial assistance, still must be accountable to bringing the house up to standards, because it affects the entire neighborhood. I think, Ms. Lena, you had a question?
Yes, this will be our final question, and be sure I have your survey if you want to be part of the drawing and when she's finished.
My name is Lena Harris, and I just wanted to commend you for all the work that you've been doing.
Thank you.
And one of the things that I am very excited about, because I served on the Governor's Juvenile Justice Commission for a long time, is about the expunging the records of the children where there are issues that they were not found guilty of. Now, my question is,
yes, ma'am,
does it expunge all of those issues that they've not been found guilty of? Because my big complaint the whole time was that a cumulative piece that was on their record. So when the police officers stopped them, they look at that record and they say, oh, you've been getting away, I'm going to get you.
Right.
And so they add a lot of stuff to it that doesn't even need to be there. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so they have a folder of information against this youth, or these youth that the police have stopped for a long period of time. It's like the cumulative folder in school, mm-hmm, where the child follows you through life. Where that follows you through life. So my question is, how much of that will be expunged from that record? Is it everything that they haven't been found guilty of?
I don't know the depth of it, because all that we could do was send a resolution asking them to consider it, because that is a state law.
It hasn't been done yet then?
No, it has not. It's in the House, yeah, okay. And the reason I asked, that's right, okay. There was a quite comprehensive criminal justice reform package that came, that was proposed. I think it was good, maybe 10 or 11 pieces of legislation to do criminal justice reform. I don't know where all of the pieces are, but know that, City Council has sent letters down in support of many pieces of that legislation, and we do have representatives at the General Assembly who are working diligently on that, along with our Attorney General, Kathleen Jennings. So I don't know exactly the answer to your question. We could try to find the answer to get back to you at the depth of the expungement, but we know that we wanted to let them know how it is affecting our young people here in Wilmington.
Okay. One other question I have, and it's also a suggestion that has been on my mind for years. Excuse me. With all of the fines that people are being given for crimes, for whatever, there's millions and millions of dollars owed that they're never going to collect. What about the possibility, and I don't know what this is or not, of letting people work off those fines by helping to clean up the city?
Are you talking about fines that the city has? The city? Are you talking about the?
It could be fines that the city. Yeah, yeah. In other words, if they go to, it could be in the city, it could be in the state, it could go all over. But my concern is the city. People are being given fines that they cannot afford to pay. Usually the judges give them a fine that they know they can't afford to pay anyway. So why not let them pay off those fines by making restitution and doing the cleanup in the city that has to be done on the outsides of these homes, where senior citizens, for instance, may not be able to get out there and do it. Some other people may be handicapped, may be out there and do it. I don't know how they would set it up, but they're not going to get the money anyway. So that's one way of clearing that record. Less, fines, the number of fines would go down. That hadn't been paid, and we could get the city cleaned up at the same time, because they're being paid by doing the work that they need to pay off their fines.
And I hear that's a very good suggestion. That was something that we would need to talk to our state legislators about, because they again, that was state fines, but it's also something we can possibly look into consideration. And there has been some dialogue about us coming up with some type of dealing with the other kinds of fines, parking tickets and all those kind of things. How do we turn that into community service from the city level? And we'll be able to, as city government, will be able to, work those kind of things out. But on the state level, we would have to go down and do, that's a collaboration we would have to do with our state legislation. But very good idea, very good idea. You always are full of them. Always have been, Sister Lena. So ladies and gentlemen, we want to respect the time and our host for allowing us to come here. We need to be done by 8. But I hope you've enjoyed and learned a lot about what your city council has been doing for you, what we need to hear back from you. We got some questions I know that we didn't get a chance to answer, but feel confident that you would get a response if you put your email on your form. I hope you filled out the survey so that we can get your points from the questions on the survey. And I want to thank you for coming and listening and having this conversation with me. There are 2 more conversations coming up in other parts of the city. So if you didn't get a chance to ask your questions or you want to hear more, please feel free to come out or tell your neighbors when we'll be in that particular neighborhood. So thank you very much for talking with me this evening, and it's a pleasure to serve you.